Hello ladies and gentlemen, Gabester here. This is the Normal and Heroic Tank Guide for Tectus. And tanking this boss is actually quite simple. There are not a lot of mechanics to think about, really. It's one of the few fights that does not require tank swapping in this particular zone. So you just pretty much pick your targets when appropriate, and you just hold them until they're dead, or you need to pick up another new target. So basic mechanics that tanks need to worry about is Tectus himself starts alone, so you'll assign one of the two tanks to him. Meanwhile, throughout the initial phase, before Tectus himself dies, there will be a couple earthen spawns that will come from the outsides of the room that the off tank should pick up. The berserker of these is not all that dangerous. It's just a big burly guy that hits hard. But the important one to watch out for is the Earth Warper. And when these guys die, they will leave a gift of Earth, which is like sort of a swirly magical thing on the ground that if the boss picks it up, Tectus himself, is kind of bad. It will heal him, gives him stacks of damage output for a while. So your off tank, when the Earth Warper dies, should voluntarily pick up the gift of the earth, him or herself. And that way it won't touch Tectus, and you'll be golden. Once the raid kills Tectus the first time, you will get 2 shards of shards of Tectus, rather, that you see here. So again, you just want to split this with your tanking partner, one on one shard, one on the other. Once you both have threat, you can stack them up together because they don't have any cleave-based attacks or anything like that, and it will benefit your raid to have them stacked for extra cleave and AE damage. Generally speaking, the raid will focus on one of these while not focusing the other one, so just watch for that. The other big thing is positioning. Depending on your raid strategy, most likely what you'll want to do is position yourself such that you are opposite to where the majority of the ranged and healers are. The reason for this is the Crystalline Barrage ability, which is used every 30 seconds for each of the bosses that are active, and it will target a random ranged raid member. It will create these red pathways of pretty dangerous dot damage every second. So if you are on the opposite side to those ranged targeted players, the barrage simply will not pass through you, and you can just safely stay where you are. Other than that, you should be very aware of the positioning of the rest of the raid relative to the barrage paths that exist and the pillars and all that good stuff, because you don't want to box the raid into a small corner. You can kind of see here we're actually in a pretty tight spot. We should move out to use more space throughout the room. So as a tank, you can help to kind of lead the raid around by moving the bosses out a bit when the ranged players in particular are getting boxed in due to the other mechanics. And that's pretty much it. Once the first shard dies, you get 4 mote spawns. You'll want to split tank those as best you can. So the motes don't do quite as much damage as the shards, of course. So one tank should tank the remaining shard plus 1 mote. The other tank should pick up the other 3 motes. And again, you want to stack them up on top of one another to have higher cleave damage and AE damage. Other than that, as I said, just watch your positioning mostly. The real positioning requirements are for the off tank in this fight, who is picking up the earthen adds, the night twisted adds rather, in the first phase. But once Tectus himself dies, those don't spawn any longer, and from that point forward, your facing of the mobs doesn't actually matter. You can face the mobs toward the raid if it's easier. It doesn't actually make a difference. So that's it. One of the most basic fights for tanking in this tier by far. But it's a pretty exciting fight. There's a lot of movement going on, a lot of activity. So as always, good luck. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.